Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to those in Chile. Let me just get started here. All right. Kia ora. Muy buenas tardes a todos en Chile, and good morning to everyone in New Zealand. My name is Chris Moy, and with my Winds of Change colleagues, Elaine Houston, Francisco Barraza, Kathy Cole, Greer Gilmer, Christina Rieselman, and Natalie Reeve, we would like to welcome you to our symposium today. This is our second Winds of Change symposium, and the Winds of Change program seeks to support and educate future leaders in New Zealand and Chile to collaboratively develop strategies to tackle the climate change challenges facing our future. This year, we've recruited 29 participants from Chile and New Zealand to participate in the program. 19 of these are based in New Zealand, while 10 are based in Chile. And we are really excited to introduce you to these participants today. Over the last 6 months, they've been working on collaborative research projects, identifying common climate change impacts and potential solutions. And our future fundamentally depends on culturally aware young leaders like these that can think globally and work collaboratively to tackle climate change challenges. We're really proud of what they have accomplished, and we're looking forward to showcasing their successes with you today. This year, COVID has caused disruptions that has continued to prevent in-person exchange, and it's also caused the postponement of our field immersion classes from taking place. And I'd just like to say we're really grateful for the patience and the perseverance of our participants during this particularly challenging year. You guys are really resilient, and I know that despite some of the limitations that we encountered, you have made really meaningful and long-lasting connections in your project work. So today we're running the symposium as a Zoom meeting rather than a webinar. So you'll have the opportunity to engage with our participants more directly in a Q&A session that will follow their presentations. With so many people attending today, we ask that you help us make this really effective for everyone involved. And the ways you can do that is to make sure that your microphone is muted during the presentations. If your bandwidth supports it, please keep your video on so our participants can see you. Make sure that your first and last name is displayed along with the location you're joining us from. And you can do this by clicking on the ellipses or the 3 dots on your video feed and selecting rename. So that's one way that can be done. Please place questions in the chat during and as the presentation is concluding. We have set aside some time for questions after the final presentation. We'll pose the questions that are written during the presentations in the chat to the participants, but we'll also allow you to speak in person again later in the symposium during the question and answer period. So we've been leading the Winds of Change program at the University of Otago in New Zealand. I'm joining you here today from Omaha, Nebraska, where we're visiting family right now. But I would really like to thank all of the people that have supported our participants this year. And those include the speakers at our workshops, our mentors, our academic leaders, and the people that have been a part of the project work that you'll see presented today. And I'll say that we're particularly grateful for the Latin America Center for Asia Pacific Excellence, or CAPE, for supporting this initiative for the second year in a row and allowing us to bring together this impressive cohort of future leaders that you will meet later today. I would now like to introduce you to Dr. Matthew Omar. He's the director of the Latin America Center of Asia Pacific Excellence, and he would also like to extend a welcome to all of you for joining our symposium.
Matthew, if you're speaking.
I can unmute now, thank you. Morena, good morning to everyone I'm speaking to now in New Zealand. Muy buenas tardes a todos nuestros participantes in Chile. It's wonderful to see so many of you on this call, and there really is a large number, so that's fantastic. Thank you, Chris, for the welcome. As the director of the Latin America CAPE, I'd just like to briefly say why we're supporting this. It's a key component it really is a key component of our plan to deepen New Zealand's relations with Latin America by showing how our country and Latin America, our futures are entwined on pressing issues of our time. Just a brief word for those of you who haven't heard about our Cape. We're one of 3 centres. There's another one on North Asia and one on Southeast Asia. We were all created to prepare New Zealand students and businesses to engage more productively with the Asia Pacific, including Latin America. And we're backed by 4 of New Zealand's best universities. Wellington, which hosts the Cape, where I'm speaking from, Auckland, Waikato, and most importantly for today's conversation, the University of Otago, of which I'm a proud graduate. It is from Otago, you see, and specifically Dr. Chris Moy, our host today of its geology department, that the idea for this project originated. And it's from Otago that the project has been delivered and will continue to expand. We've invested in it for 2 reasons, many reasons, but 2 main reasons. 1, we want our centre, our Cape, to be relevant to the needs and concerns of young people. And there could hardly be a more relevant theme for them and you than climate change. Secondly, we know from our own knowledge of Chile, in my case as New Zealand's first education counsellor in the Santiago Embassy, how many common environmental, geographical and economic challenges New Zealand and Chile share, especially in the south of our countries. Therefore, if we share these things in common, how much good work our universities can do together on climate-related issues if only we knew each other more closely. So our first symposium last year for our 2020, our pilot cohort, was a great success, and I'm sure today's will be too. The program, as Chris said, has continued to strengthen this year despite the challenges of COVID. And for that, I'm grateful both to Chris and his team for their ongoing academic leadership, and for Otago's program manager, Elaine Yunsen, for his strategic sense and operational drive. The program is in great hands, so much so that we've got really big plans for it next year. We hope another Cape will join. We're exploring potential partnerships with government and university groupings that may expand to other countries, and we hope to develop its multidisciplinary dimension even further, connecting its scientific, business and policy emphases. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Today is about today and the work which has gone into today. It's all about savouring the fruits of hours of discussion between our Chilean, Kiwi and Chiwi students, Chiwi being Chilean Kiwis, and learning what they have to tell us on subjects covering all the disciplines you're going to hear from today. Students, congratulations on all you have learned in workshops. Well done for listening to the academic leaders, but also well done to listening to each other across the Pacific. New Zealand and Chile are closer than we think. I look forward to your presentations and encourage you all to keep engaged with Winds of Change and the Capes after your presentations today. Kia kaha to you all. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks so much, Matthew. Really looking forward to today, as well as what's to come in the coming years. And I think they'll continue to provide really nice opportunities for the participants that are here and that have been involved in our program previously. So that's fantastic. The Winds of Change is many things, and we've been really fortunate to bring into the fold a handful of really creative participants over the last few years. And some of them have been great videographers and been able to compile some really nice footage that I think really speaks well of what the program is about and what we're trying to achieve. And so we have a short film that we'd like to show you guys. It's about 3 minutes or so in length. And it'll highlight some of the key aspects of the program and provide a really succinct kind of overview of what we're trying to accomplish. So Natalie, why don't you take it away?
Although separated by nearly 10,000 kilometres of Pacific Ocean, Chile and Aotearoa, New Zealand are neighbours. Linked by the strong southern hemisphere westerly winds that circle Antarctica, not to mention the vast Southern Ocean. Born of the same plate tectonic processes, Chile and New Zealand have surprisingly similar geography, with vast plains, dense forests, high mountains, and extensive coastlines, all helping to support ecosystems and industries that are similarly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And yet, relations between Chile and New Zealand are underdeveloped. Across scientific and business sectors, there is a need for knowledge transfer of climate change impacts and adaptation strategies so that we can learn from each other and optimise our response to future challenges. Initiated in 2020, the Winds of Change programme seeks to establish a New Zealand-Chile exchange and develop a collaborative network of future leaders that can identify climate change solutions. The programme selects postgraduate students from Chile and New Zealand who come from a range of academic backgrounds, including natural, physical and social science, business, finance, science communication, and humanities, which are all united by their common interest in climate change and ways to develop sustainable business strategies, practices, and policy. Through field trips, these future leaders get to see the causes and effects of climate change firsthand. There's a bit of a fern here. Ooh. And through discussions with scientists, business representatives and policymakers, they develop a better understanding of climate change impacts and their potential solutions. Participants build on what they have learned and establish new links with other experts by conducting their own collaborative group research projects. Consisting of one Chilean, one Kiwi and one Chiwi, each group overcomes the challenges of being separated by language, distance, and time to collaboratively investigate an aspect of climate change, its impacts on the environment and society, and the adaptation strategies that are being developed in Chile, New Zealand, and other countries around the world. Finally, the groups present their projects to the growing Winds of Change network via an online symposium. Presentations cover a range of topics and formats, from formal reports and essays, to pamphlets and flyers, posters, and short films, whatever way the group feels they can best present their information. By examining the similar climate change impacts their societies face, participants in the Winds of Change programme strengthen the interdisciplinary and intercultural alliances between Chile and New Zealand, and help to demonstrate how the sharing of trans-Pacific knowledge can support greater economic growth and social well-being in both countries.
Fantastic. Thanks, Natalie. I think there's an overview slide that you can present now, just to give you a quick overview of some of the leaders of the team. Yeah, there we are. So again, my name is Chris Moy. I'm an earth scientist. I'm based at the University of Otago, and my research students and I focus on climate change, Earth's record of climate change, and carbon cycling. And so these are, along with Elaine, Christina, Francisco, Kathy, and Greer, we've been kind of compiling the Winds of Change program over the last year. And so I'd like to give everyone here just a quick opportunity to introduce themselves. I'd like to start with Elaine, who's been a key driver of the program this year and has put together the symposium. And I think you've all heard from Elaine over the last few weeks as she's put everything into motion. So, and we'll start with Elaine and then go from there.
Thank you, Chris. Morena koto, hola a todos. So as Chris mentioned, my name's Elaine Yunsen and I'm based at the University of Otago. And so I work with the Centers of Asia Pacific Excellence, and I've been the project manager for Winds of Change this year. I won't say much more than that. Others have got better things to say, our participants, but it's lovely to see everyone joining. And I'm very grateful to see how many people are interested in making a change, and also interested in hearing what the participants have come up with in the last few months. So Christina, did you want to go next?
Yes, thank you, Elaine. My name is Christina Rieselman. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Otago. I'm in a position shared between the departments of geology and marine science. I'm also married to Chris, and so this is the Winds of Change is sort of a passion project that the two of us have been really excited to have an opportunity to deliver in conjunction with the rest of the leadership team. And most importantly, with really incredible contributions from all of our participants over the past 2 years, from all of the experts who've come in to speak to us and to our participants, and to all of the external connections that our participants have nurtured over the course of developing their projects. So I'm really excited to see the fruits of all of your activities, and really grateful to have all of you as part of my network, including the rest of our leadership team. So Francisco, can I pass to you now?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Good morning, New Zealand. Good afternoon, Chile. Good day to the rest of the world. The Chilean phase based on Otago of the Wind of Change program. I'm also lecturer in the University of Otago, and I'm happy and keen to be here and show everyone our symposium, all the project that all participants did this year. That will be amazing. So thank you, Christina. My pleasure to be here. My pleasure to introduce our work to you. And now I'm going to pass to Kathy.
Thank you. Greetings, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm Dr. Kathy Cole. I'm a lecturer in science communication at the University of Otago, and it's been a huge pleasure to be working with Winds of Change over the past 6 months or so, particularly working with the participants over the recent weeks as they've developed the products that they're going to be sharing with you today, which range from everything from infographics to written articles to films, and they're really, really professional products. So I want to thank all the participants for your work in honing and refining those, and I'm really excited to see them today. Is Greer joining us today?
I just did a quick search. I didn't see her, but hopefully we'll see her later on. Thanks, everyone. And without further ado, we'd just like to get to our participants here and introduce you to them. So I'm actually going to hand it over to Francisco, who's going to lead the first session of our symposium. Take it away, Francisco.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We are ready to start with the presentation and the session 1. But before to start, I want to remind you to check your name, and if you can change it to your real name. We are having some problem with Zoom, so please check your name, change to your real name, and if you can put the city or the country that you are at the moment, that will be great. Okay, and also we are going to leave the question to the end of the symposium. So if you have any question, you can put it in the chat and we can read it later, or you can ask the question later. Or if you want to do some more private questions, you can email us and we are going to put you in contact with the person who is presenting. Okay, so thank you for being here. And we are going to start with the group 1 that they are going to talk about glacier tourism in warming world, turismo glaciar en un mundo en calentamiento. So Kaylee, Javiera, Paulina, y Gonzalo, Zoom is yours. You can start. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. Hola a todos, tēnā koutou. Hello everybody. Today our team is sharing the project that we have been working on for the Winds of Change program, which is glacier tourism in a warming world. This is us, Kaylee, Gonzalo, Paulina, and myself. Although we live in very different places, we share an interest in learning about impacts of climate change and finding ways to get the message across to other people. In the beginning, we thought about a problem and a cause: glacier retreat and tourism. We did some research about how tourists can impact glaciers as an environment. We got in touch with experts and we had the opportunity to know their point of view. and we learned that tourism is not the main cause of glacier retreat. There's much bigger causes affecting those big pieces of ice. Humans and their globalized lifestyle. If we are all responsible to a certain degree about glacier retreat, what can we do about it? We needed a space where people can find information about sustainability, glaciers, and tourism. Here today, we present to you the website that we've made, which aims to educate the general public on how to be more sustainable tourists. Pauli will present a short run-through of the website soon.
So Chile and Aotearoa, New Zealand have many similarities, as they correspond to long and narrow stretches of land adjacent or immersed in the Pacific Ocean at very similar latitude. Also, both have a main mountain range that contains a large number of glaciers, which are important not only as a simple landscape component, but also because they give life to an entire ecosystem and are sources of water and recreational resources for humans. Glaciers are also very sensitive to small changes in climate. Today, most of the glaciers in the world are retreating as average temperature increases and snow precipitation decreases. For example, some iconic cases for each country are the Franz Joseph Glacier that we are seeing now on the presentation, that has retreated more than 1 kilometer since 2007, and the Marinelli Glacier in the southern Chile that went from being a large valley glacier to a small hanging snowdrift. This has impacted among other things, the possibility of accessing them being more distant from the walking trails and making their access more dangerous as well as more demanded, since there is a growing desire to visit those destinations before they disappear in a sort of last chance tourism.
We wanted to speak with people who knew much about glaciers and why they're significant features in our environment. This meant talking to more than just scientists. Our 5 interviewees were James Renwick, who was involved with the last 3 Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change reports, Constanza Espinosa and Paulina Jimenez from Glaciares Chilenos, a multidisciplinary team of volunteers who seek to educate the Chilean public on the importance of glaciers, and Heather Purdy, who was once a tour guide at Aoraki Mount Cook and with the Department of Conservation, and is now an expert glaciologist, and Sam Parsons, who is a program manager for the adaptation program with the Department of Conservation.
So based on our interviews, we found that education is key when trying to tackle the problem of climate change. With this in mind, there are 4 questions that we identified and want to showcase to our audience. So the first one is, why do we care about glaciers? From a tourism perspective, glaciers are important both in Chile and New Zealand, where the livelihood of many communities depends on visits to these features. However, they are also much more, since they are freshwater reservoirs for plants and animals. They form part of larger ecosystems and have cultural value to indigenous peoples.
The second key question was about the relationship between humans and glacier and what is our impact. So regarding this, we were able to gather testimony from the expert that the greatest damage is the anthropogenic forcing of climate change through the burning of fossil fuels and emission of greenhouse gases by everyday activities, whether it is to visit a glacier or something far away from them. Actually, the impact of walking on a glacier is minimal, and as we will see now, visiting them can be an opportunity to educate others to take care of them.
In this section, we wanted to highlight those organizations that they're doing something to preserve and protect glaciers. We had a very interesting conversation with Paulina and Constanza from Glaciares Chilenos, an NGO with more than 130,000 followers on social media, where they share educational information and legislation in Chile. This project is so inspiring, and it will be a great opportunity to start something like Glaciares Chilenos in New Zealand. We also talked to Sam Parsons from DOC, having the opportunity to hear the DOC's perspective about glacier tourism in New Zealand. Being a main goal is having a duty of care to both visitors to the area and to the businesses operating in the area, making sure that they provide experiences that they're resilient, safe, sustainable, long-term.
How can we be more sustainable tourists, or more simply, what is a nice tourist? This was the last question we asked our experts and for the general public. How can they be more sustainable in their travels and consumptions of tourist attractions? Shown here are the 3 key messages that kept coming up over and over again. The first common theme is that tourists should do more research into their destination. We should find and support the businesses that are doing what they can to be more sustainable tourism operators. Next is to become informed and connect with local communities, approach nature not only through tourism, but through other means like photography and art. While reducing our footprint is a major part of sustainable tourism, understanding the cultural significance of what we are consuming is also important. And finally, travel slow and stay long. Less fuel is burned when you find low emissions means of travel. And furthermore, spending time in your destination benefits the communities and the local businesses. There are many places who work hard to not be part of the problem by offering low emission services and educational components. There are more sustainable tourism options for people to experience glaciers without harming the glaciers.
And so now moving on to our product, which is the website, it's a destination where we can display information that can be accessible to anyone, but especially targeted towards people who are visiting glaciers so that they can learn how to be a nice tourist. This is done by distributing a QR code to tourism operators, which is something that we plan to do. And on the website, you can see the answers to the key questions that we discussed, as well as find links to organizations like Fundación Glaciares Chilenos and the New Zealand Department of Conservation. And now, to finish our presentation, we'd like you to hear from the experts yourselves. So here are some words from the experts.
And now to wrap it up, this conversation, if you could send a message to tourists or like the general public, what it will be?
I think it's spend more time in these locations. The community would benefit, the businesses would benefit. The longer, I guess, the more bed nights someone spends in a certain location, the more they're eating out, the more they're visiting the local businesses, but they're also traveling slower. They're not flying through, they're not driving every single day. So that, I think, will be a significant reduction in emissions. And then that's going to lead to the general, I guess, choices that people make regarding certain activities that they do along the way also.
To really respect the environment, especially the glaciers, if you're interested in ice and mountains, really show respect for that environment. And the other thing I would say is, if we want to retain the glaciers we have now, we really need to get on top of emissions of greenhouse gases. And anything anyone can do around that is useful. And I think a lot of the time, the best thing anyone can do is to communicate about raising the profile of this issue and making it clear that we have to take action very soon, or we won't see the glaciers anymore. It's really important, I think.
Don't be that person that always waits for someone else to do something. Like, if it's that evaluate your own lives and think about what little things that you can do yourself to live more compatibly with the earth, and whatever that is, depending on what your jobs are and where you live and how you have to, like just doing your best with every little thing you can do to reduce your own impact on the planet.
No solamente aproximarse a la naturaleza desde el punto de vista turístico, como también mencionaba la Pau, desde el punto de vista deportivo, no es necesario ser un montañista de alto rendimiento para conocer glaciares o para estar conectado con la montaña. Se puede también uno vincular desde la acción ciudadana, desde el arte, desde la fotografía, pero siempre aprendiendo, siendo conscientes del espacio que estamos habitando y nada, pues informarse, participar, ser responsable de las decisiones que toman como ciudadanos.
Thank you.
Thank you. I like your presentation. Good work. And I like that you put also subtitle in Spanish, so that make easier for us that our second language is English, understand well your project. If you have any question, please, you can put in the chat. We are going to answer them later. Or if you have something more private, you can email us. We put in the chat also our email, that is windsofchange@Otago, sorry. Could you help me with
Yeah, of course. So windsofchange@otago.ac.nz.
Okay.
And even if you want to use your option, you can even just send a chat to just us. If you want it to be anonymous, for instance.
Yeah, you can send them in a private way too. Okay, we are going to continue with the next group. The next group going to present expanding private sector finance in climate change community-based project for Chile and New Zealand. Expandiendo el financiamiento privado para proyectos comunitarios de cambio climático en Chile y Nueva Zelanda. So John, Paula, Emma, are you there?
Yeah.
It's time to present now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa, buenas tardes. I'm Paula, and our group will be presenting on the challenge that communities face accessing funding for climate adaptation and exploring strategies to overcome these funding barriers. I study environmental management at the Southern Institute of Technology, and in about a month, I will start to work on a carbon neutral project in Zealand, New Zealand.
Ko John Clemo Tuku Ingoa. I'm from Auckland originally, and I'm living in Honiara, Solomon Islands. I'm working on a community-focused climate adaptation project here, while also completing my master's through Victoria University of Wellington.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma and I studied commerce and law at the University of Auckland and now work as a business consultant. As an overview of our presentation before we dive in, we will explain why we chose our topic and then describe our selected communication approach. This has been to develop an infographic aiming to raise awareness and increase financing for community-based adaptation. Finally, we will share how we've engaged with relevant organisations and talk briefly about developing the cross-border relationship between these organisations.
Our group wanted to explore how communities can be better supported to and empowered to adapt to climate change. We've learned how people in communities often bear the brunt of climate change. Effects such as bigger storms, droughts, and sea level rise can have devastating effects on people and their culture and environment. However, the International Institute of Environment and Development found that less than 10% of climate finance is directed at local level. Bearing this in mind, we wanted to understand how to more effectively channel climate finance to communities. So we created an infographic aimed at environmentally minded individuals and businesses. We also plan to share the infographic online through a range of social media channels.
Let's now take a closer look at the infographic itself, which is of course available in both English and Spanish. The first page in green is centered around adaptation, and the second page highlights two different case studies. If we go to the Winds of Change website, which I hope you can see on my screen now, the infographics are available there and you're able to download them here. Looking at the first page, we started by setting up some context and background, including showing the distinction between mitigation and adaptation and emphasising the co-benefits of these activities. For example, co-benefits could be planting trees as a mitigation activity, which also benefits local communities by reducing flooding in the catchment. Despite the important benefits of adaptation specifically, it is harder to attract investment, with 2/3 of climate funding going towards mitigation. Following the page down, we highlight some examples like replanting native forests to prevent soil erosion and sustainable and resilient farming for food security and livelihoods. The second page focuses on two case studies. The first being on ECOS in New Zealand and the second on the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN in Chile. ECOS is an NGO in New Zealand that provides sustainable advice and sells products derived from climate mitigation projects. For example, the Rarokau Rainforest Conservation Project in Southland has a range of mitigation and adaptation benefits. It protects Indigenous rainforests but also helps improve water quality and brings income into the community. Over in Chile, IUCN works with communities to plant and protect forests, to reduce avalanche risk and improve community resilience. One project example to share is EPIC Chile, which supports reforestation for avalanche risk management in the Nevados de Chillán y Laguna del Laja Biosphere Reserve area. The project has also successfully influenced climate change policy to create a more enabling environment for adaptation projects. That's a run through of our infographics. As you can see, they're already live on the Winds of Change website, so feel free to take a closer look after this symposium. We'll now jump back into our presentation to talk a little bit more about our engagement with organisations in both countries over the course of this programme.
Beyond informing people about adaptation funding, we wanted to explore the potential for ECOS to offer more adaptation-centric products beyond the existing range of carbon credit and other sustainability-focused offering. According to our research, climate finance in Chile mainly goes towards mitigation projects and efforts to reduce carbon emissions. So we determined that there might be a gap in the Chilean market for these types of sustainability products. In a meeting with the CEO of ECOS, Sean Weaver, we discussed how funding from mitigation projects and product sales could support community projects. When asked about this, Sean pointed out that ECOS already has a really strong emphasis on adaptation and resilience, although he really expressed an interest in developing more adaptation-heavy projects. With this model, businesses could use ECOS's services to reduce their emissions while also funding community adaptation projects. This could be recorded through a certification standard, demonstrating their commitment to reduce emissions and helping their local communities. Green-minded individuals in the market for carbon credit products could likewise be influenced to buy a new product focused on community resilience.
IUCN is an international NGO which has projects based in Chile, including the adaptation project we mentioned in the infographic. IUCN has established links with organizations and communities, including Así Conserva Chile. When our team met with IUCN, we gave an overview of ECOS products and services and explored their interest in forming a strategic partnership. For this reason, we were eager to explore the possibility of ECOS collaborating with IUCN. During the meeting with ECOS, we discussed the importance of a tailored approach to the local context and developing a strong network to support the strategy, implementation, and ongoing growth of any community-based adaptation work. During our meeting with ECOS CEO Sean Weaver, he was very positive about the idea of partnering with a Chilean organization and was open to sharing ECOS project's approach in such partnership. One thing Sean emphasized was the importance of enabling policy environment for climate change projects. In Aotearoa, he said, the shape of legislation such as the Zero Carbon Act and the forthcoming Management, Retreat and Climate Adaptation Act, it is vital to ensure ECOS can continue to grow its operations. There is no equivalent national legislation in Chile, although the National Plan for Adaptation to Climate Change sets out the country's plan of action for adaptation. The participants from IUCN Chile said they were interested in learning more about ECOS organization, about ECOS, and the potential for a possible partnership. It is exciting to see the prospect of organizations from across the Pacific connecting with each other. And hopefully, this will enable greater facilitation of funding to community-based adaptation projects in the long run in Chile and Aotearoa, New Zealand. To conclude the presentation, a quote by Barack Obama: "Climate change is no longer some far off problem. It is happening here, it is happening now." On behalf of our group, thanks for listening and muchas gracias.
Great, thank you. Beautiful infographics and picture. I really love it watching the presentation. Thank you so much. We have to continue with the next group. We are quite tight of time. But before to start with the next group, I want to remind you that question will be at the end of this session. So if you have any questions, you can put in the chat. Or if you want to do your question more privately, you can email us to winoftchange@otago.ac.nz, or you can privately send us a chat comment. We are Uni of Otago 1, or I'm Francisco Barraza if you want to do it directly to me, and I can pass the message. The other thing that I want to tell you is all the resources, all the infographics, all the video that you are watching now are available in the Wind of Change webpage that I'm going to put it in the chat in a few seconds more. So, but mostly is Latin Cape webpage. Continue with Wind of Change, okay? So let's go to the next group. The next group going to talk about the water scarcity and water management. In Spanish is escasez de agua y gestión hídrica. And who is going to present is Andrea, Agujata, Isabella, and Chris. Are you there?
Yes, thank you, Francisco. Kia ora, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon for the people in Chile. Today, with our group composed by Chris Diseña, Isabel Sioka, Akuhata, and myself, Andrea, we want to share our project that is water. There's water scarcity and water management. Just as a little bit of spoiler alert, our final output of the project is gonna be a research and an outreach article regarding water scarcity and the indigenous perspective about it. And we will learn a little bit more about it later on the presentation. We started with water scarcity as a mutual concern that we all had regarding how climate change is affecting the natural cycle of water and how water has been managed till today as seen as another resource, just as another resource. And we as a group believe that water is much more than that, is a connecting force, and as we cannot be oblivious about how the Pacific Ocean connects New Zealand and Chile and has been connecting it for ages. Now we were interested in the indigenous perspective and what we can learn from the indigenous perspective regarding water management. And now Kahuta is going to tell us a little bit more about that.
So yeah, as part of our investigation, we interviewed 2 Indigenous peoples from Aotearoa, New Zealand and Chile. Our Aotearoa, New Zealand interviewee was Troy Brockbank from Te Raroa, Ngātihine and Ngāpuhi. He's a water engineer at Pedal Delamore Partners. He shared with us a whakatauki or proverb called ko wai ko au, ko au ko wai, which means I am water and water is me. This really honed in on the Indigenous perspective of what water really is and what it means to them. Water is not a resource that can be extracted and mined to serve a commodity. Water is our relative. We need to protect water in order for us to be sustained within our environment. In Chile, we interviewed Juan Draucal. Chris, could you? Yeah. Juan, who is a geologist, and he is also Mapuche. He discussed with us something that his father told him, that if water gets sick, we get sick too, because we cohabitate in the spiritual life spectrum. If the water is healthy, we're going to be healthy too. This also hones in on the Indigenous perspective of water, that if water is unhealthy, we're unhealthy too. It shows that similarity and interrelatedness of water. Some similarities between the 2 Indigenous peoples are that our worldviews are very holistic, cyclical, and interrelated with nature. Water is not a resource to be mined or extracted. It is our kin, it is our sibling. Hence, we have an obligation to look after it. Water is the giver of life and a tohu or sign for the health of the environment. And And another key theme between the two indigenous groups is that water shouldn't be managed. It shouldn't even be a topic to discuss. Water should just be able to flow, and nature will prosper when water is left to run its natural cycle. So I'm going to pass to Isabella, who's going to talk about industry and water.
Yeah, well, regarding management, in both countries, water is seen as a public good, but in Chile, its legal framework states that water is an economic good also. So this has led to a private water market with more than 80% of water use rights on private hands. Here in Chile, people have to pay for domestic consumption, while in many regions of New Zealand, they don't. In this country, regional councils manage water, and this has led to quite different systems scattered around the country. But in the coming years, a new owing and management program or model with a more centralized view is being faced, the Three Water Program. In Chile, more than 25 state entities and more than 3,000 water users organizations, which are private, are related to water management, but the official information, decisions, and delivery of water rights are centralized. The low control capacity and data has led to many water basins being overexploited, overgranted, or water being stolen in this country. Some of the problems regarding water in New Zealand has to do with contamination. For example, 20% of Kiwis are supplied with water that doesn't meet standards. Also, the intensive agroindustry has risen nitrate levels in waterways, in some waterways, and this has led to health problems such as cancer. On the other hand, in Chile, some problems are related to inequalities regarding to water access and water rights, and this has led to socio-political conflicts and water scarcity, because industry is getting a huge proportion of the water rights. In both countries, the problems are related in general with inequalities, the industrial use of fresh water, and the lack of reusing and recycling water. So we think that securing a fair water access and seeing water as a nature right and a human right is important in a climate change scenario. So now I'll pass over Chris.
Thanks, Isabella. We knew the enormous pressure that we are putting on our water systems and our water infrastructure in both countries. And as a part of the process, we also interviewed people on the climate change science side who informed us, to no surprise, that the effects of climate change are essentially compounding the damaging effects that human beings are already having, whether it's driving algae blooms and warming rivers and lakes, adding to the already damaging things that we're doing through our industrial things like agriculture, and the extreme weather events across both New Zealand and Chile, making things that we're already struggling to handle even more difficult to handle, making it a strong case to look at the root cause of climate change, as well as trying to fix some of the water management day-to-day challenges that Isabella just mentioned. The opportunity that we found out, when we embarked on this project, we didn't expect that the front and center theme would end up being on the worldview of Indigenous peoples across both New Zealand and Chile, but that did end up being the main takeaway that we had as a group, of the immense value of the knowledge that they have, and how, even though now in New Zealand anyway, we've got this new sort of sustainability concept of regeneration. Everything has to be regenerative. And we're looking at that through new data-driven carbon processes, and it's sort of the latest and greatest trendy term. But if we listen to the Indigenous people that we speak to, they've always lived within natural cycles for hundreds of years. They've always valued the water, not just as a commodity, but as an essential part of life. And as our Mapuche interviewee said, when the water gets sick, so do we. The water is currently quite sick, and as climate change sort of forecasts are telling us, it's going to get quite a bit worse. But that there's just so much value in the knowledge that these Indigenous groups already have. And there's plenty more of that in the actual article. What's next for us is we've got to do our initial article release. It's quite long, it's over 3,000 words. And we're also going to publish it on the Asia Pacific Insights platform in addition to the Winds of Change. That should be going live this week as well. We're then working on our translation so we can publish it in our initial Chilean publication, which we already have lined up, but probably from there quite a few others. And from there, the theme of the article can be relevant for multiple different formats and outputs. You know, we can make it really digestible. We can put it into a video or into an audio form. There's so many different ways that we want to get the word out about what we've found, because we do think it's quite a different take on the water issue, but also really valuable. This is an example of what it's going to look like when it is live on the Asia Pacific Insights. And we've also got it now live on Medium, which is an initial place that we can share it. And I've got it right here to put into the chat. So if anyone wants to read it after the symposium, you can go into, at the moment it's on my personal Medium, but we're all credited equally as authors, but you can have a read of it there. And that was it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you for the link too. What a complicated topic. It is a big issue in both countries, Chile and New Zealand. So thank you for work on it. Thank you for put some beautiful ideas on it. And thank you for connected also with the spiritual meaning of the water from indigenous community, and both in New Zealand and also in Chile. So thank you. We have to pass with the next presentation. So, but before of go to the next presentation, I want to ask you if you can check your name, and if not your name, please change it. And also if you can put the city that you are now or the country that you are now will be great. We have around 8-9 people with the same name, so maybe that is a Zoom problem, okay? So please check your name, and if you can add your city and your country, it will be great, okay? Now we are going to continue with the next group that they are going to present about water and climate change, environmental education for high school students. Agua y cambio climático, educación ambiental para estudiantes de enseñanza media. So please, Guillermo, Katy, and Catalina, if you are ready, Zoom is yours.
All right, thank you, Francisco. Let me full screen this. All right, okay, so tena kotoko katoa, hola a todos, buenos días, buenas tardes, depende del lugar donde estén. Our topic for today is going to be water and climate change, environmental education for high school students. So first of all, we're going to introduce ourselves, and my name is Catalina Obando. I'm based in Punta Arenas, Chile. I am an English teacher and a National Geographic certified educator, and I'm currently studying a master's in international studies.
Karakoto, everyone. My name is Guillermo Rodriguez. I studied biotechnology, neuroscience, and project management in the University of Chile, and I'm based in Wellington, working as a software engineer, and also doing a PhD at Victoria University of Wellington.
Kathy?
Kathy's having some muting problems. We'll just give us 1 second and we'll get her unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Kia ora koutou, hola dos. I'm Kathy. I'm currently an environmental policy analyst working on freshwater management across Aotearoa, New Zealand. Previously, I worked for a few years as a water engineer at a consultancy, and I studied environmental engineering and graduated with a Bachelor of Engineering and Honours.
All right. So now I'm going to explain why, or the reasons why we chose this topic. So according to different papers that we went through, as well as our personal experiences in both countries, New Zealand and Chile, we realized that the main barrier to environmental education was the lack of time, as well as the lack of instructional materials and sometimes funding. And we also realized that another barrier mentioned in the literature was the lack of knowledge and competences from teachers, and we could actually prove this through a workshop that I had the opportunity to teach to Chilean students on how to teach climate change in the classroom. And as you can see, as you can read in the quotes, they both agree, the Chilean teacher and the New Zealand teacher, on the lack of time. So that's why we decided that it was really important to address this problem and to create an educational bundle that allows teacher to address this problem. All right. Also, environmental education does not advocate a particular viewpoint or course of action. Rather, it teaches individuals how to weigh various sides of an issue through critical thinking, and it enhances their own problem solving and decision-making skills. And that's what we actually need. We need informed future decision makers. So now we're going to show you what we did during the workshops, and we actually hosted two interactive workshops. One for Latin American students. As you can observe, they come from different parts of Latin America: El Salvador, Honduras, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Ecuador. And the other one was in a New Zealand school based in Dunedin. So in this workshop, we got very surprised because we were expecting to teach them about water scarcity and climate change, but actually they had the chance to share their own experiences, and we got really surprised. Even though I personally come from a Latin American country, I didn't know about these problems in other Latin American countries. So I will let you listen and judge yourselves.
Yeah, when my friend was talking, I remember that here in Esipudas, this is a coffee producer place. So in fact, my family even makes a living with it. But there is this great river we share with Honduras and El Salvador. It is called Rio Lempa. But when producing coffee, there is this process in which they have to clean the pulp out of it. But it is too expensive to do it sustainably. So what people do is that they use the water from the river and they contaminate it because there's too much pulp and the plants cannot clean it. And when the river goes where it reaches Honduras, the water is already contaminated and the communities around there get affected. And even when you go near the river, it stinks and it's very sad.
What coffee does your country produce?
What do you mean with what coffee? Like, what brand?
Yeah, what brand?
For Starbucks and Nestle.
Oh, all right. So after this, we held the second workshop in the New Zealand school, and here we could realize about the huge gap between both regions. Let's listen to what happened.
I think we're coming from a pretty privileged position, not having personal experiences with a scarcity of water. There's a student saying his tank water sometimes that you have to get it filled up, Caleb. Like you have to get your phone. Is it always full? Fortunate. Excellent. Guillermo?
All right, so you could observe, you could listen to the big difference, and that's why we concluded that this topic it's really important to address, and we need to raise awareness in our students and the young people so that they can realize about different realities around the world. Okay, so to finish the workshop, students were put into groups and they had to come up with 2 ideas of mitigation and adaptation for water scarcity. And maybe we can listen to a part of this conversation.
Desalinization, it's a really tricky word. I put in the chat so y'all can see it.
Okay.
So this is like a plant, and it's not a plant, it's not a plant, it's kind of like a fabric. I personally thought that it was a plant, like the green plants. Then I realized that it wasn't. The thing is that it takes seawater and it makes it actually, I don't know how to say it, but it makes it, yes, thank you. So, and that's actually really amazing.
All right, and because of time, let's listen shortly to what happened in the New Zealand school.
We got more water storage. So for example, like more tanks, so there's more water supply, so there isn't a shortage of drinkable water. But also in recycling wastewater, so wastewater facility cleaning and reusing the wastewater so it's drinkable again. And protecting the storage, so like put it on a hill so flooding won't affect it, and so it's also like erosion. And then also conducting like water surveys to make sure that water isn't contaminated, and like fixing any water supply issues that may be discovered from that.
All right, so finally, I'm going to explain about the impact of these workshops on the students, and they actually sent us videos explaining about their own experiences and the impact that they had with this workshop. We decided not to show them, not because of time, but actually because of their safety, because you all know that in Latin America, activism, it's dangerous. So we prefer to keep their nicknames. And here you can read some quotes of what they shared with us. And finally, this is what we produced after our 2 workshops. We created bicultural and bilingual resources for Chilean teachers and New Zealand teachers. You will be able to access to our presentation slides, and you can use them if you're interested on this. You can use them however you prefer to do it. We also uploaded the video of the whole workshop, so you can see how we conducted it, the ideas of the students. We also created an infographic including all the ideas, experiences of the students and the solutions for water scarcity. And finally, because of our main problem was time, then we decided to create lesson plans both in English and Spanish, and with the objectives aligned with the syllabus and curriculum from New Zealand and Chile, with 3 follow-up activities. So that was our presentation. Thank you very much. And here you will have the link to access all of our resources, and I hope you enjoyed. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to be a high school student again and be part of one of your workshops. They look so great and fun at the same time. So thank you for your presentation. I want to remind you that all the resources are in the web page of Wind of Change, and also in the link that the speaker and put in the chat. And if you have any question, please put in the chat. If you want to do it more privately, you can send a private chat to me, Francisco Barraza, or Uni of Otago 1, or you can email us to windofchange@otago.ac.nz. Okay. Thank you for your presentation. And now we have few minutes for questions. So we have a few in the chat. So Glenn?
Yeah, so as you all know, the plan was to have just the Q&A at the end, but we've been gifted 9 more minutes. So let's use that to go through the first question. So group number 1, this is a question for you. So James is, first of all, complimenting you on your interesting mahi, so congratulations. So his question is, was there consultation with Indigenous groups in Chile and or Aotearoa to bring these perspectives and worldviews into the development of the website? He's also asking if there were any collaboration with graphic and interaction designers in the development of your website and visual communication. So feel free to pick the aspects that you're able to answer. I'll let you take the lead on that.
While answering the second part of the question, the website was actually made by us very amateur-like. We put a lot of love into it, but it wasn't made with any professional designers. It was us.
Great, thank you. And I think that also demonstrates just how driven the participants have been in terms of learning new skills for some of them. To be able to put together websites and documentaries and infographics. So good job, guys. Javiera or Kylie, was there anything else that you wanted to address in the question in terms of Indigenous perspectives, for instance?
Yeah, so the first part of the question about engaging with communities or like Indigenous people, we try to engage with Chilean and New Zealand communities. At this stage of the project, it was very hard. We couldn't get hold of anyone really, and no one in our network knew someone in those areas, but we are just happy to engage with as many people as possible, because it's very important to hear everyone's perspective, businesses, scientists, and also communities, Indigenous people. So if anyone knows someone, please let us know, but it will be incredible to have their opinion and have them in the website.
Great, thank you so much, Javiera. So just so everyone knows, on Monday, you'll all be getting a copy of the participants' email, the Winds of Change participants. So if any of you have the ability to help out with this, feel free to reach out to this group. We have 5 more minutes, which will allow us to go through the second question. So that's for the group number 3, about water scarcity and Indigenous perspectives. So Sherry is saying there are moves towards integrating Māori views in water management in New Zealand. So for instance, legalizing rivers as people, free waters. What is happening in Chile in that space? If the group was able to give us more information on that, it'd be great.
Hi, thank you for the question. So right now in Chile, we're going under a process of the writing of a new constitution. So I think our hopes are put that through that process, they're going to be able to integrate more Indigenous perspective, because the president of the constitution, she's Mapuche, and there's a lot of Indigenous participants, and there's also like a special commission inside the constitution to see topics as environment, water, and so on. So hopefully through that process there's gonna be able to integrate this other perspective, because till now it hasn't really happened much. So that's all we can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Did anyone else from the group want to say anything? Great. If anyone else has any questions for those first 4 groups, you can either ask them later on during the Q&A session, or if right now you just wanted to raise your hands, you can just click on reactions and then raise hand. You'll pop up on our screen and I'll be able to unmute you and you'll be able to ask your question if you wanted to ask it now. We'll just wait 20 seconds or so, and then if no one has a question to ask, we'll just move on to our break.
Okay, now we are finishing with the session 1. So we are going to a 10 minutes break to start the session 2. I want to thank to everyone to be here. We have more than 100 people watching this session, so I'm really happy for that. I'm really happy for your participation. Thank you for all the speakers for your time, the project, all of them, they were beautiful, nice, and I want to see that again, watch that again in the web page of Wind of Change. And also want to remind you, if your name in Zoom, the name that Zoom give you is not your name, please change it, okay? And if you can put the city that you are now and the country will be great. So again, thank you to everyone. Let's go to grab a coffee and have a break for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for rejoining the call. I hope that you enjoyed the first session, and we're really excited to bring you the next 4 groups and their presentations. So I think we'll get started. And our next group is Diane, Cesar, Olivia, and Summer, and they're going to be presenting Eating for Tomorrow, Food and Climate in Chile and Aotearoa.
Alimentándose para un buen mañana, nuestra comida y el cambio climático en Chile y Aotearoa.
So you're welcome to begin your presentation. And just a note for everybody, if you have any questions at any point throughout the presentations for any of our groups, please just pop them in the chat. Thanks very much, group.
Hi, everybody. Oh, hi, Helen. Would you be able to let me share my screen, please? Awesome. Cool. So, kia ora, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. We are very excited to share a project today where we delved into the relationship between food and climate change. So first, let us introduce ourselves. Oops.
Hola a todos. Hi everyone. My name is Gonzalo Contreras. I'm an environmental engineer from the University of Concepcion. I'm currently living in Chile.
Hi everyone. I'm a Chilean living in Christchurch, and I just finished my bachelor's in biology, and I did an honors as well in biochemistry.
Ngā mihi mahana kia tātou, no Otorohanga me tāna kia hau, ko Samarangi Māori e tōku ingoa. I'm based in Manawatu, Palmerston North, where I'm doing a PhD in food science, and I previously studied to be a dietitian.
And I am Olivia Adamson. I am a master's student in environmental sciences at the University of Waikato, and I am half New Zealander, half Argentinian. So first of all, let's talk about why we chose to put the focus on food. So there's one thing that every single human has in common, and it is that we all need food, and in an ideal world, we all eat every day. Food is also a huge part of culture. It plays a role in building identities, and in today's globalized world, food is relevant at both local and global scales. For example, in New Zealand, we actually get a lot of table grapes from Chile. And lastly, it also involves both the rural and urban environments. So naturally, because of its interconnectedness, food production and distribution has wide-reaching social implications. In a world where we produce more than enough food to feed everybody in every country, 9% of the global population is undernourished, according to a report from last year. And almost paradoxically, obesity is also on the rise everywhere, with cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes being very common and posing a burden on public health systems. New Zealand and Chile are not exempt from this. A report from 2019 said that 20% of children lived in households that are food insecure, while in Chile, this figure is 16%, which equates to 3 million people. And as you can imagine, the pandemic has further highlighted these issues. The other paradox of all of this is that we're talking about large agricultural economies. On the other hand, there are also huge environmental impacts from modern food production. As you can see in this figure, food accounts for one quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. And some estimates show that emissions from food alone could use up our budget to limit global warming to 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, modern agriculture also contributes to biodiversity loss and soil and water degradation, while on the flip side, climate change is also bound to make agriculture more difficult, with increasing frequency of extreme events like severe floods, droughts, and wildfires. So after that very cheerful introduction, I think that we can all agree that these are really large intersectional issues and that the solutions are not always straightforward. However, our team also recognized that this is not really a knowledge or a technological gap that is occurring, but that it is a gap in equity, and in environmental protection. Of course, large-scale systemic changes are very important. And at the same time, work at that level may seem intangible and inaccessible to most people, which leads to them feeling alienated and disempowered. So what our team wanted to do through this project is to change the narrative from one of doom and gloom, which appears to dominate the discourse around climate change, to a narrative of empowerment and of action. So we really wanted to highlight the everyday people that are taking climate action that affects change here and now. So we saw the opportunity to spotlight their work and to galvanize our audience into action. Because at the end of the day, we engage with food every single day. So what is more empowering than knowing that as individuals, what we put on our plate is paving a way for a better future for both people and for the planet to thrive. So with this in mind, we decided to make a video that can be distributed in social media and in news outlets to raise awareness, to educate, and to inspire the general public to think about these issues a bit more and see how they can become engaged. So I believe, Helen, you are able to play the video over there for us.
When you think about the biggest problems facing us today, climate change might come to mind. It's an existential threat to everyone, everywhere. What is less known is how food is one of the biggest drivers of environmental damage, but is also one of the most significant opportunities to address climate change. Aotearoa, New Zealand and Chile are an ocean apart, but they have a lot in common. Their food systems are contributing to poor environmental and human health. A food system includes everything relating to how we produce and distribute food. They touch all things, from farms to governments to politics and people. In Aotearoa and Chile, food systems impact the environment in similar ways. Using fertilizers and pesticides to grow food pollutes soil and water, which are precious resources. Waste from animals also degrades waterways. Agriculture, especially animal farming, is the leading cause of biodiversity loss worldwide. In Aotearoa, 82% of native species are endangered, and 50% of Chile's native species are threatened. Food systems are responsible for huge amounts of emissions. Globally, a quarter of all greenhouse gases come from producing and distributing food. In Aotearoa, agriculture creates nearly half of all emissions, and 7% in Chile, though much of this has been offset by forestry. We need food systems because they provide the nourishment for us to live and thrive. But we also need them to be healthy. Right now, they create poor human health. Diet contributes significantly to cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, which are major problems in both Aotearoa and Chile. Food systems simultaneously cause obesity for some and undernutrition for others. 20% of New Zealanders and 16% of Chileans cannot access enough food despite there being more than enough. It's obvious that something needs to change. But how do you even begin to fix something so complex as a global or national food system? A national food strategy is one way to reorient a food system. It sets out the principles that the system should follow and can affect everything from farming to policy and even eating behaviours. Mana Kai is an emerging framework for a food strategy in Aotearoa. It's based on Indigenous Māori values and creates a holistic vision for a food system. Mana Kai has 3 domains. To promote environmental well-being, food systems should respect the social order of humanity and nature. This means protecting land and water from the negative effects of agriculture, and even farming in a way that benefits the environment. It also means sharing resources and acknowledging the spirits present in nature. Food systems should ensure human well-being by protecting knowledge and promoting Indigenous sovereignty. Food production should also distribute wealth fairly, provide good nutrition, and be done in a respectful way. If Mana Kai is successful, we would see Aotearoa's food system shift from prioritising financial bottom lines to putting ecosystems and people first. Not all countries have a national food strategy yet. They're fairly new and take a lot of political and social willpower to establish. But despite not having a food strategy, people in Aotearoa and Chile are still pressing for change and creating it themselves. La Melia is an organisation based in the south of Chile. Their objective is to promote diets that are healthy, clean and just. This means that their practices are based on agroecology, balancing farming with ecosystem health, and procuring resources within geographic limits, which reduces emissions from transport. In Aotearoa, Ruimata Food Commons is a community in Ōtautahi, Christchurch, that transformed a local park into a food forest. They now offer produce to locals without asking for anything in return, which also alleviates the effects of food insecurity. Even if you don't have these initiatives nearby, there are still things you can do every day to make your diet more planet-friendly. According to Project Drawdown, a world-leading climate change project, a plant-rich diet ranks 3rd out of 80 solutions to climate change. A diet rich in plants and low in meat tends to be lower in emissions and is healthier, which reduces your risk of chronic illnesses like heart disease. Even one meatless day a week is great work. That's not to say climate change is your fault for having steak, but cutting back on high-impact foods here and there can go a long way. Fundamentally, Chile and Aotearoa have very similar problems, many of which are rooted in dysfunctional food systems. They're causing poor human and planetary health, but the solutions people are finding in both places are very similar. High-level changes like a national food strategy can have far-reaching effects throughout a food system, while community-led efforts can directly serve people in need and create more resilient networks that make sure people have access to delicious and healthy food whenever they need it. Food systems are not set in stone. They can adapt, and we can reduce the intensity of climate change through food, and also make systems more resilient to climate change. By reimagining food, we can create a better future.
Okay. Olivia, can you share the screen, please? We hope that you guys really liked the video. It was a very laborious task, but we are so happy with the results. And about La Melga, we had the privilege to meet them in a virtual meeting, and we talked a lot. And after that meeting, we believe that in a local level, they are a great community. They have a huge impact, especially in rural areas that are a little bit forgotten. And we think that they are currently playing a fundamental role in empowering the people here in Chile.
And we looked at Roimata because we saw that they were doing more than just trying to feed people. They were also building psychological resilience by offering produce that people can just access without having to pay for it or give anything in return, which is sometimes people are not in a position to do that. And also because they foster the care of the earth, and through that we're looking after our future and ourselves at the same time. So we realized that change needs to happen at multiple levels, like the national level, community level, and personal level. But the responsibility shouldn't be on communities or individuals. And we think government should step up, and policymakers as well, because unless we address agriculture, we are not going to reach our climate change goals. And even though these are huge challenges and they occur because of deeply ingrained systemic failure, they also are a massive opportunity that every person can engage with. So thank you.
Thanks very much. That was a really powerful presentation and a fantastic video. So really excellent focus on those opportunities as well. Thank you very much, team. We're going to move on to our next group. I should just say that if anyone has any issues with audio, it is at maximum here, so please just, I hope that you'll be able to increase the volume on your own personal computers. I know a couple of people had questions about that. You can also check out those videos and resources on our website, which they're all uploaded now, so feel free once this is finished to have a look at them in your own time. So our next group is Ignacio, Nick and Carolina, and their presentation is A Forgotten Gas, the Impact of Nitrous Oxide on Climate Change and How It Can be Managed.
Un gas olvidado, el impacto del óxido nitroso en el cambio climático y cómo puede ser manejado.
Hold on, I'm just trying to share my screen. Okay. How's that? Is that working?
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Excellent. Take it away, Ignacio.
Okay. Kia ora, folks in New Zealand. Buenas tardes a nuestros amigos y amigas chilenas. Thank you for joining us today. We are the Forgotten Gas Group, which includes Nick, who works as a trade policy advisor at Beef and Lamb in New Zealand. We also have with us Carolina Trujillo from Facultad de Ingeniería de la Universidad del Desarrollo. And of course, I introduce myself. My name is Ignacio Jara. I work as a scientist in the Center for Advanced Studies in Arid Zones, so CEASA y La Serena in northern Chile. I actually did my PhD at Victoria University of Wellington, so I feel a special bond for New Zealand. I used to be a Chiwi. And we are called the Forgotten Gas because we focus our attention into nitrous oxide, or NO2, a gas that probably hasn't brought as much attention as CO2 or methane, but it is, however, a very important gas for climate change, a very important gas for global warming, and very important gas for future challenges in a global scale. And you might wonder why. And to answer that questions, I will lead you with Nick. So Nick, are you there?
Yep. Thanks, Ignacio. So nitrous oxide is the gas that has the third largest effect on global warming following carbon dioxide and methane. And there's already a lot of information on those two gases, which is why we decided to focus on nitrous oxide. For agriculture, understanding nitrous oxide emissions is important as it's a long-lived gas. And farmers are looking for ways to understand their impact on the climate. And here in New Zealand, the He Waka Eke Noa partnership between government, industry, and Māori is just starting to consult on pricing options for nitrous oxide and methane. As part of this program, all New Zealand farmers need to know their greenhouse gas number by the end of 2022 and have a plan to manage their emissions by 2025. We thought this video would be an easy way to get farmers thinking about nitrous oxide and start having these conversations. Over to you, Kato.
Thanks. So can you click, please? Thank you. We decided to make a video considering the big distance between Chile and New Zealand, and because of the logistical difficulties that this represents to give the same message in an easy way to understand. The audience we want to engage with are farmers from both countries, especially those that are working with livestock. The video will be brought, we want the farmers to understand the effects of nitrous oxide emissions in the climate and how these emissions are produced, so they are able to think in ways to change these effects or reduce their emissions. Can you click, please? Thank you. The video will be broadcast in Beef and Lamb website in New Zealand and in GTT website in Chile, both institutions that work really closely with farmers. The link between Chile and New Zealand are the similarities of the climate and the big agriculture industry that is very present in both countries. So next, please.
Excellent. Helene, can you please play the video for us? Farming and livestock industries provide access to food, empower communities, and help lift people out of poverty worldwide. The world's population is expected to increase to nearly 10 billion people by 2050, with a corresponding increase in food production needed to feed all of these people. Yet, with great power comes great responsibility. Our forgotten gas, the impact of nitrous oxide and how it can be mitigated. Increasingly, farmers are looking at the environmental impact of this increased production and how they can mitigate any adverse effects, such as greenhouse gas emissions. Agricultural greenhouse gas emissions are mostly methane or nitrous oxide. This video will look at nitrous oxide, what it is and how farmers can reduce its emissions or mitigate its effects. Nitrous oxide is a greenhouse gas that has a significant global warming impact. Like carbon dioxide and methane, atmospheric concentrations of nitrous oxide have continued increasing since the 1700s, mirroring global agricultural expansion. Nitrous oxide, while emitted in much smaller quantities than carbon dioxide, has a much more powerful warming effect. And as a result, nitrous oxide emissions account for around 6 to 12% of the global temperature increase since pre-industrial times. Nitrous oxide is mainly produced by ruminant animals excreting excess nitrogen from plant proteins in the urine. As fertilizer use has increased, production from livestock has boomed. A cattle urine patch results in a concentrated area of nitrogen that can contain the equivalent of up to 1,000 kilos of nitrogen per hectare. For comparison, fertilizer application rates are typically 30 to 50 kilos of nitrogen per hectare. Once it is excreted by an animal, there are several possible pathways for the nitrogen. It can be absorbed by plants and used by soil organisms. It can be lost to the atmosphere as nitrous oxide, or it can be transformed into nitrate from where it can leach into groundwater. But there are actions farmers can take now to understand and address their impact on climate change. Farmers can reduce the amount of nitrous oxide emissions by reducing the amount of nitrogen excreted by animals. This can be done by ensuring that animals' diets aren't too rich in protein, as any excess protein is excreted as nitrogen. Plants are also important players, as they absorb nitrogen in order to grow. Farmers must ensure that plants utilise as much nitrogen for growth as possible, so that any excess doesn't turn into nitrous oxide. Finally, farmers can mitigate or offset the warming effect of nitrous oxide emissions through carbon sequestration. There are currently new technologies in development that may help with nitrous oxide management. However, in the interim, understanding your farm's emissions is the first step. We hope this video helps farmers in Chile, New Zealand, and around the world. Agriculture is crucial for food security and lifting millions of people out of poverty. It has adapted to challenges before, and we're confident that it can adapt to the challenges of climate change. The first step is understanding how. Excellent. Thanks, Helene. Hold on. Oh, I've lost the slideshow.
You're sharing, Nick.
I'm sharing?
Yes.
Sorry. Excellent.
Okay. To understand the impact of the information of the video, we interview Veronica Fernandez, the president of GTT Technology Transfer Group. And in this video, Veronica's opinions is about the Chilean reality and the ideas of how to reduce the emissions. So let's see it.
Just checking you can see the video on my screen.
Yes. Oh, we can hear it.
Okay. So just to finalize and in conclusion, the topic was a real challenge as it was quite technical and none of us had any expertise in this area beforehand around nitrous oxide knowledge. We're really happy with the way it turned out, as we hope it will be a practical tool that can be used by farmers. The agriculture industry, and in particular animal agriculture such as beef, sheep meat and dairy, has a lot of work to do over the next few years to understand and manage their emissions. While some farmers are a long way through this process and are already marketing and selling products with environmental claims, there are others that are only just beginning this journey. There's also technology and development that may help mitigate or manage nitrous oxide, such as the spiky technology in the picture there. However, it's not necessarily commercially available yet, and there's still a few issues to work through. And other management techniques aren't practical for all farm systems. So in conclusion, just a massive thanks from myself, Carolina, and Ignacio. We hope you found our video interesting, and please feel free to share it around to any farmers that are beginning this journey. For us, this has been a really interesting project, and we would just like to say a massive thanks to the Winds of Change team for all their help.
Congratulations, that was a really powerful presentation and a fantastically polished video, so well done. I know a lot of work went into that and you really pulled it off, so I think that's a hugely valuable resource. And as we said, all of these resources are on the website, and if people can share them widely, we'd be really grateful. Just a reminder that if anyone has any questions for any of our groups, please pop them in the chat and we will come back to them at the end of all of our group presentations. And now we're going to move on to our 7th group, which is Rata, Begonia and Esteban. And their presentation is about wetlands. Are they a potential solution to reduce the risk of flooding?
Humedales, ¿son una posible solución para reducir el riesgo de inundaciones?
Over to you.
Guys. O ka whai. Tēnā koutou kua huihui mai nei ki te whakarongo ki a mātou rangahau. Ka nui te mihi ki a koutou mō tō tautoko. So good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much for zooming in today to listen to our project. So our group's focus was on wetlands and are they a potential solution to reduce the risk of flooding? Our group's choice of topic really began as a discussion on how important wetlands are in mitigating the impacts of and adapting to climate change. And there are so many different routes we could have gone down, but we chose to look further into the flood risk and how that can be managed. So ko wai mātou, who are we? My name is Rata Pryor-Rogers and I studied marine biology and I now work as a policy advisor at Te Runanga o Ngaitahu. We have Begonia, who's a marine biologist working as a research assistant based in Santiago in Chile. And then Esteban, who is an environmental engineer who is from Santiago but is now living in Queenstown.
Complementing what my colleagues said, it has been a great work experience, work together, because we share different visions. moment, and we mix our skill. And something we have in common is our attraction to the wetland. And we believe that they are essential to face the adaptation of climate change. So where are the wetlands? Wetlands are areas of marsh, fen, peatland, or water, whether natural or artificial, permanent or temporary, with water that is static or flowing, fresh or salt, include areas of marine water, the depth of which a low tide does not exceed 6 meters. Wetlands are essential because they provide different ecosystem services, such as nutrients regulation, recreation, habitat and biodiversity, food and water supplies. And in this presentation, we will develop the disturbance and hazard regulation ecosystem service, like how the wetland can be reduced the risk of flooding, understanding the flood strategy, and some international and national flooding control experience.
Okay, floods are an overflow of water that submerges land that is usually dry. And from 1998 to 2017, they were the most frequent type of natural disaster, with a 43% of all recorded events. They were also the third most damaging type of natural disaster after storms and earthquakes. And flash and riverine floods are the most frequent type of flooding both in Chile and in Aotearoa. Flash floodings occur when intense rainfall flows downhill and inundates a river. And so the river level rises rapidly, causing it to overflow its banks and inundate the floodplain. On the other hand, river or fluvial flooding occurs when heavy rains cause rivers to inundate their floodplains, often affecting large areas. Climate change is expected to increase flood risk because of increases in heavy precipitation frequency and catchment wetness, but also because of the sea level rise.
So we looked at the different flood management strategies in both Aotearoa and Chile, and the management of flood risk is encompassed as part of the overall response to managing emergencies and disasters. Both countries also recognise the importance of adapting to and mitigating the impacts of climate change. So in Chile, it is central government's role to plan and implement preventative measures and actions and responses to the risk, emergencies, disasters, such as flooding. The strategic plan in response to these disasters is focused on institutional strengthening and early warning systems, building resilience and prevention, addressing all aspects of the risk, and importantly, investing in preparedness. So on the ground, this looks like stop banks, drainage, restoration of estuaries, among other activities. In Aotearoa, there are 12 statutes that play a distinct and important role in managing natural disasters, including flooding. So it's central government's role to provide national direction. It's then the regional council's role to manage the environment, with local council's role in managing the use and development of the land. So in New Zealand, we have quite a localised approach to flood management. So this is the river just down from my place. It floods significantly, probably once a year, damaging people's home and property. So some of the tools that are used in New Zealand to prevent this flooding are structural mechanisms. So essentially this is keeping floodwaters away from people. So that's stop banks, gravel extraction. We then have non-structural measures. So this is keeping people away from the flooding. So those are objectives, rules, policies, and land information. Emergency management plays a key role, and as does other tools such as education and information. And we had a look at what other countries were doing as well in flood management. And in the UK, they're really focused on natural flood management. So essentially, this is working with the whole catchment and its natural components, such as forested areas and wetlands, to reduce the impact of flooding.
So it's important to include the wetland in the future flooding strategies in both countries. But could wetland reduce the risk of flooding? Yes, studies indicate that wetland could be stored water, delay the time of flood, and significantly reduce the peak of flood. Also, wetland vegetation has a vital function in slowing down the flow. But the effect of wetland depends on various other factors like storm characteristic, local topography, and landscape features. Some international experiences where wetlands have helped control flood have present. For example, in 2012, coastal wetland helped in USA, coastal wetland helped prevent the damage from Hurricane Sandy. In Netherlands, field measurement in the swamp show a clear storm attenuation. And in China, in 1998, after the storm hit the country, the Chinese government promoted the restoration of the flooding plain for prevent other floods. So what about our countries? In Chile, we contact the Legado Chile Foundation, where we share experience, and they express their testimony about the flood control by Baqueano wetland in Yanquihue. Andres Rivero said the control of flooding by wetland can be relevant to the human well-being. And Veronica Irrazabal told us that when a wetland is restored, it can be recovering its function, such as flood control, and as happened in the Baqueano wetland.
In New Zealand, we were fortunate to talk to two people whose wetlands, purpose, were quite different. So Dawn works in the Matakoti wetland, and the purpose of that wetland really was to reduce the impact of flooding on Queenstown. We then talked to Glenn Riley, who works at Te Nohoaka o Te Takiōʻo wetland. And that main purpose of that wetland is mahinga kai, or the traditional food gathering and access. And their sort of point of view was the flood management benefits from wetlands is more of a human aspect. So that's something we enjoy from them. That's not the natural function of a wetland, it's just part of what they do. So it was interesting talking to these two different people. So next we have our video that Helena is going to share for us, hopefully.
Yeah, if you give us just 1 second, it should pop up.
So this video is sort of the highlights from our interviews with these different people who work in the wetlands, and sort of taking the key messages that we found.
The wetland is there by nature, and to protect the nature of a place and support the nature of a place is to support the natural processes that created the nature of the place. And I think it's very, very important that we stand back from the margins of these places and support their integrity, and to support their function, and to support their process, because nature is trying to help us. It's trying to support itself, but it's also able to support what we need from it if we just let it.
Me parece importante señalar siempre es el paisaje somos todos, es decir, somos todos responsables de lo que está pasando, ¿ya? Independientemente si solo somos un vecino o somos el alcalde. A todos nos toca tomar decisiones, tanto desde lo que compramos, cómo disponemos los residuos, qué es lo que hacemos con ellos, etc. Y lo otro que creo que puede ser interesante es como que nos veamos a nosotros mismos también como una forma, un estado más del agua. O sea, el agua no solo está en estado gaseoso, líquido y sólido, también está en estado de biodiversidad y nosotros somos parte de eso. De hecho, pudiéramos decir que todo organismo vivo también es como una suerte de humedal, nosotros mismos. Así que yo creo que en la medida en que nos veamos así, vamos a tener mayor empatía con esos otros espacios.
Sumar a eso de que entender de que la sobrevivencia de todos en la Tierra tiene que ver con un estar y actuar colectivo. No podemos pensar en acciones desarticuladas. La naturaleza es así, colabora. Y nosotros dejamos de colaborar durante mucho tiempo, algunos, y tenemos que volver a colaborar de forma súper enérgica. Y entender esta unidad que dice el Andy. Como de verdad que somos todos pequeños humedales andantes y que hacemos buenas sinergias estando juntos, como pasan cosas bonitas cuando estamos trabajando juntos.
I don't know why. So this is an example of the infographics we've made for our presentation, and they can be found on the Winds of Change wetland website if you'd like to find more information. And yes, that's our presentation. So thank you very much for listening. And any questions, please send them through.
Wonderful work. Thank you so much. And that's a great video. I love the interview clips. That's really, really powerful messages. So our next group is Blake, Joseph and Laura. And this is our last presentation for today's symposium. They are going to be talking about seaweed, an ocean of opportunities for climate change.
Algas marinas, un océano de oportunidades para el cambio climático.
Hola, hello everybody. Hi, my name's Blake Hornblow, and I'm going to be presenting this morning with Joe and Laura, who you'll meet in a minute. And we first thought of this project, I guess, when we saw the distance between Chile and New Zealand and saw the Great Pacific Ocean. And so we thought of seaweed and all of the potential mitigation opportunities and solutions that come from seaweed for climate change. Both of our countries are coastal, are connected to the coast, and we made a video and an infographic to share these solutions that we found with you today. So I think, Helene, you can share our video. Imagine an underwater forest growing at 60 centimeters a day. Light trickles down from the ocean's surface and the kelp is growing up to reach it. It grows in a cloud of fish, marine mammals and invertebrates. This is what we have on the coast of New Zealand and Chile. Seaweed, or kelp, is a diverse group of marine organisms present all over the world with the ability to photosynthesize. Seaweeds are so important for the global climate and are responsible for the production of 20% of the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. The large kelp forests are made from brown algae, which can be found globally within rocky coastal marine systems. Kelp provides many important ecosystem services such as coastal stabilization, water filtration, habitat engineering, and carbon sequestration. Coastal ecosystems sequester up to 20 times more carbon per acre than land forests. This blue carbon is helping to regulate the climate and has huge potential to help us draw down carbon to reach our reduction goals. However, this natural solution to the climate crisis is having its own problems with a warming planet.
Hi, my name is Joseph Hulka. I am a marine biologist studying for a master's degree in the history of science and scientific communication, and I am going to talk to you about the problems that the critical forests are going through. One of them has to do directly with climate change, and is that due to the increase in sea temperature, the growth rate of kelp forests could be drastically reduced and even disappear, since the populations of seaweed require cool waters, those that have a high content of nutrients for their growth. This increase in ocean temperature can also cause these large marine forests to move towards colder waters in search of these nutrients, as occurs in New Zealand, or to disappear due to strong headway that has happened in 2018 in Lyttelton Harbour. Another big problem is what we do on land also threatens them, because elements such as fertilizers, pesticides, sediments, among others, end up reaching the sea and damaging these large macroalgal forests. Last but not least, there is overfishing and the loss of predators that regulate marine ecosystems, which can lead to greater growing populations of herbivores that feed precisely on the kelp forests, which can destroy these ecosystems if there is not control over them.
Kelp can provide many solutions to the climate crisis, and through this project we've identified several ways in which kelp can help create a more sustainable future. Firstly, blue carbon. We connected with the New Zealand National Science Challenge Sustainable Seas, who have been looking at ways in which kelp can be admitted to the emissions trading scheme or verified through a third party. Zealand and Chile have water space to start growing kelp in aquaculture and start a new industry for blue carbon. As well as growing more kelp, we must protect our current seaweed stocks on the coastlines. Fisheries New Zealand and the Department of Conservation have proposed a kelp protection area along the Otago coast. Realising its value for fisheries and carbon sequestration, it could be protected from commercial harvest into the future. In Chile, the commercial harvest of kelp is huge, and since realising the value to local communities, the government has created a law called Environmental Considerations and Adaptations to Climate Change for the algal industry, stopping unsustainable harvest of this resource. Thinking outside the square with seaweed, a new New Zealand business called CH4 has been researching the potential of Asparagopsis species of seaweed. It has been shown that when added to cattle feed, it can reduce the methane emissions by cows by up to 95%. As both New Zealand and Chile have huge agricultural industries, this has great potential for us to reach our emission reduction goals. From carbon credits to cattle feed, there's an ocean of opportunities for seaweed to help the climate.
Well, now I will share with all of you our product infographic. 1 minute. Okay, do you see the infographic? Great. Well, our product focuses on the creation of an infographic that told in a simple and friendly way how seaweed can be a great tool and allies to face climate change for both countries, Chile and New Zealand. For this, we wanted to begin by contextualizing what seaweed are, and also talking about some data and aspects of this marine
marine organisms that seemed very relevant to us. How, for example, how much carbon capture and lock away, how much oxygen produced, etc. Below, we describe the problems here. Problems that these organisms face both the ocean, how, for example, overfishing due to the action of the human being on land, how, for example, pesticides and fertilizers, and finally provide solutions both to conserve these organisms and to face the climate crisis, how, for example, marine reserve, climate adaptation, blue carbon, and other. We also want to highlight that this infographic is in its Spanish version. And if you notice at the end of each bubble that explains a solution, the links that people can access through their web browser appear here. For example, one link, second link, third link. We also thank Katia and Chris for their comments and feedback on our product. And now Laura explain more, a little more about infographic.
Okay, thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Buenos días, buenas tardes. I would like to add that, as Blake and Joseph said, we have been developing research in order to learn a little bit more about the importance of seaweed, and we have identified that is not very well protected in both countries, in Chile and also New Zealand. However, we have been collecting solutions as well that other organizations are raising at the moment. For example, I would like to mention that in Otago, the Department of Conservation has already started developing protecting areas, trying to avoid the extraction of kelp forest. Or, for example, the Climate Change Commission has already develop and publish information suggesting that the blue carbon must be included in international targets. So trying to coordinate with others organizations and also supporting the emissions reduction plan that New Zealand has already established. Other NGOs, for example, Sustainable Seas, has developed another initiative, or Sustainable Surf. They already are investing in restoration, trying to decrease their own carbon footprint. So we would like to share with you through this document a lot of initiatives that are carried on at the moment in order to connect with others and trying to continue working on that direction and protect this resource that is very important for the crisis that we're facing at the moment. And thank you, everyone. That was our project.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And that wraps up our presentations for today. So we'd just like to say how proud we are of all of you for the work that you put into this. It's been a long road, and we've had a number of challenges, particularly with different COVID restrictions popping up, but you've all done really well, and today has been a really great demonstration of that. And we're particularly excited about the legacy that your projects will leave through the resources you've made that are on our website and will be shared elsewhere. So we're going to move on to our Q&A session, which Helene will be hosting. So if you have any questions, you're very welcome to either pop them in the chat or just raise your hand using the emoji on Zoom, and then they'll pop up to us. So we'll just give you a couple of seconds to have a think about any questions. I'd just like to thank you all once again for great presentations.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We'll give everyone a minute or so to think of questions or raise their hand. I think Kathy really nailed the feeling is pride right now. Just we know how hard you've worked on all of this, and we know that, you know, a big chunk of you are doing this in a language that's not your first language as well, in front of a big audience, online, with all the challenges that brings to the table. So just congratulations to all of you. I just want to acknowledge Natalie Reeve as well, which none of you can see, but is sitting in the room with us and has been our tech genius in terms of sharing the screen. So thank you, Nat, for all your hard work. And also a little bit of a shout out to Angela Davis, who's shared her name with many people today. So thank you everyone for bearing with this technical difficulty, and thank you, Angela, for letting everyone use your name for a few hours. So does anyone have any questions? Let us check the chat. No, so nothing is popping up right now. Does anyone want to just take this as an opportunity to ask the question themselves? You can raise your hand, unmute yourself, and just ask the participants or the Winds of Change team anything you want to know. Okay, so nothing jumps out right now. If you do want to ask a question, then you can. Just so you know, for you to pop up on our screen and us to be able to see that you've got your hand raised, we need your video to be on. So if you want to turn on your video, it means you'll pop to the top of the screen. I see someone was also named Angela. I'm very sorry. Wearing a blue jacket, I think, with his hand raised. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question. Yep, feel free to go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alvaro. I've been in New Zealand for a couple of years, probably 4.5 already. I was always involved in sustainability initiatives back in my country, related to obviously being a bit more friendly with the environment. And when I saw this initiative, Winds of Change, I was pretty interested on knowing a bit more about it. But more than a question, is a feedback. I'm not a university graduate, or I don't have a PhD or any sort of a university degree. I'm a technician, I'm a chef, but my feedback is related to when are you gonna take the initiative on involving people like me, that is really interesting, you know, to make or to create change. And it has been done it, you know, I have done it for my whole life, probably 20 years that I've been involved in the food or hospitality industry. I have been involved in initiatives like this, but I feel always excluded of these initiatives that creates that sort of a connection, because my problem with these programs, it's when you want to implement this in the field, there is no connection with the people that is going to implement these things. But it's only because we don't have the connection, or we don't have the knowledge, or we don't have the opportunity to get involved with you guys. So that's my feedback.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. And I think this is a good reminder that people from all industries need to be involved. I know that's something that participants have tried to do as much as possible, is reach out to people from different industries. So not just academics, but also people who work in those spaces, whether that's, you know, nitrous oxide group talking with farmers, or, you know, a different group talking with tourism operators, for instance. And I think that's important for us, because as you said, you are on the ground, you can see what's being done. And your perspectives are just so insightful that they need to be taken into consideration. I think it's a good reminder for us as well, in terms of the workshops that our participants have got access to throughout the year. We do try and involve speakers. You know, when we try and find speakers, we don't ask if they're academics. Those are just people that, you know, are experts in whatever field they're in. But I appreciate your reminder to take everyone into consideration and not make anyone feel excluded as well, I think. Yeah. Did you want to add anything?
Thank you. The people when we do the invitation, it's quite open, but it's good to know the people that is passionate on it and trying to follow to do ideas. So when we get feedback like you, we going to do changes. We do changes. So thank you for let us know. Probably the next year we are going to do some changes, and we are going to invite a more extended people in case like you that it doesn't have a university background or is not connected with the university. So thank you for let us know. Thank you for your feedback, and we are going to take your energy for the next year. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Alvaro. And good luck, and follow our webpage or social media so you can be updated for the following process, especially for the next year. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the feedback.
Yeah,
And I might just quickly ask if you can pop into the chat how you learned about the symposium. We'll make sure that that channel is also a channel we approach when we're sending out expressions of interest to apply for participation next year. So for us, knowing that there are new pathways that we can use to reach communities who are different than the communities that attracted this group is really valuable. So thank you again for volunteering this information. Very, very helpful.
I would like to add something, if it's possible.
Go ahead. Cool.
Well, yeah, because I really agree with what he said. Actually, at the beginning, even though I'm part of this program now, I felt the same way. Like, what am I doing here? I'm just a teacher, you know. I'm not. I never felt at the same level than my colleagues here. And I'm actually personally trying to reach communities. I think it's really, really important, but I'm talking about Chile and now. There's a lack of funding. It's really difficult to get to communities because of course we need to live too. We cannot volunteer forever. So it is complicated, but I think there are more initiatives now where we're trying to reach everyone, like common people with no degrees or with no with different knowledge, not related to climate change. But I think it's really necessary to get to everyone with these topics. So thank you.
Thank you, Catalina. And we all know how much you've brought to the table as well. So no doubts there. I see there's a question from Duncan Blair in the chat, very kindly asking, what is the best way to contribute to the initiatives you're working on? So I think, from a Winds of Change standpoint, we can say, engage with those resources, share them with whoever you think would be interested. I think all of them are in both Spanish and English, so hopefully quite a wide audience could access those. But I'd love for some of the participants here to jump in and say, from your kind of personal standpoint, what can people do to help get the word out there about all your incredible work? Anyone wants to jump in, that would be amazing.
I can speak on my team, and Catalina, feel free to jump in. But it'd be great if you could share resources with anybody you think would be interested in water and climate change. Like, you don't have to be an educator. If you're just interested in the topic, feel free to share all the resources, share them with your children. You can teach them about it. The activities are designed to be really approachable. You don't need to have studied this topic before or have a degree in education. So just share with anyone you think would be interested, have a look yourself. Feel free to get in touch with us if you have any questions as well. Catalina?
Sorry, I wasn't focused. What do you ask me?
I just asked if you had anything else you wanted to share about how we could share our project and get other people to help with it.
I didn't mention these before, but because it's not really related to the topic, but I'm currently teaching climate change topics through an English course for Latin American students. That's how we reached to these Latin American students that you saw. And part of the results of that project funded by the National Geographic is going to be as well a bundle of lesson plans and educational resources for everyone, but also presentations for everyone who's interested in learning about climate change topics. So I will be sharing the final results once this project is closed. So you will be able to access to more resources that are actually very easy to understand. They're made for students, for people who's not involved in this topic. So, well, I guess I will be able to share it through Winds of Change website, I guess. I don't know, I hope.
Yes, it's already
So,
on there,
yeah.
so people can already access it.
Yeah, so I will have more material in a month or so. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Tim. I see, Javiera, you've got your hand up if you want to ask your question or contribute.
I would like to ask everyone if anyone wants to collaborate with at least our project, please reach out. Because we interview people from Zealand Chileno, which they are a group of, I don't know, I think they have 30 people, different backgrounds. So maybe if you don't know about glacier, but you know about design, you can just make infographics or help us with the website. Or if you can just reach out to a community because you live nearby. I think it's not about the project itself and just us for making it. It's as many people as we can reach out and they can be part of the project. I think that's the main goal of our project, just make it accessible and anyone can be part of it. And I think that's the main idea of it.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying as well is, there will be more coming. So we'll make sure that, we update the website, but LinkedIn is always a good place for us as well to kind of get the word out as updates come, throughout the next few months. Then there'll be another cohort. And our goal really is to kind of have different cohorts from each year collaborate together, share skills, share knowledge. So thank you, Javiera, for kind of extending out the invitation to the attendees. Christina, I see you still have your hand up. Would you like to add something?
I was actually going to ask a question of the nitrous oxide group, if you guys are available for answering the question. For me, I am really excited by the potential of your project to connect with a group of people who sometimes get the short end of the stick in climate discussions. And I wonder if you can tell us more about your plans for making your film available to farmers in New Zealand and Chile, and sort of what you expect the reception to be, or if you've already had an opportunity to share it with some of those groups.
I don't know if Nico, Caro are still here, but yes. Carolina, maybe I was more in charge of the technical aspect with the video, so Caro.
Thank you. Yes, we engage with the GTT, that is a big institution in Chile that works with transferring technology for farmers. So they are very well known, and farmers follow their lead. So it's a very good opportunity. And we also spoke with farmers from far away in Patagonia, because they have different ways to work there. And they were very interested also in the news that we were giving. So I think the reception of the message was very well received. And in New Zealand, Nick, are you there? I know there are another organization very interested in sharing the video also and working with the farmers. Nick, I don't know.
I can say something. So yeah, we're just chatting in our group just now because we have received some interest of a couple of New Zealand institutions for our video. So we're thinking about maybe broadcast the video on a YouTube channel, or I don't know, sending to the institutions directly. We also might think about doing a video with a Spanish voice as well, especially if we're focused on Chilean farmers. I think that would be a good strategy, because probably for Chilean farmers, listening a video in English would be not that exciting as doing in their same language. So that would be your next step, I would say.
Team, Nick has just returned. Nick, I think, are you here? If you just turn your audio on. We're just wondering if you can share a little bit of information about how your video has been received by New Zealand farmers.
Hi, yeah, I'm back. Don't worry, I had to change onto my phone. So far, so we've been talking with the He Waka Eke Noa program here, which is the partnership between Māori agriculture and government. And as I said before in the presentation, they're going out on pricing options for agricultural gases, and they've seen the video and they're quite keen to use it. You know, as we said, there's not too much information on it, and the idea behind our video was that it's not a whole lot of information bombarding people, but it's sort of just starting the conversation and getting people to think about it. So that's quite good to know that it is seen as a practical tool.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Back to the main room.
Thank you, guys. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. If anyone has any burning questions that they want to ask before we start wrapping up, now's the time to do it. You can feel free to just unmute yourself and ask your question. Not even needed to raise your hand. Great. So what will come to all of you guys who attended on Monday is the recording of the symposium if you want to rewatch anything, the contact details of all the Winds of Change participants. So if you can already kind of identify your opportunities or things that you want to ask more questions about, feel free to contact the participants. And this is really what this is about, is creating ties between both countries, New Zealand and Chile, fostering this sense of, we've got a common goal, it's solving climate change issues, which, as we know, impacts everyone. As you know, as Barack Obama said. And so, yeah, so let's just wrap this up. I think, Chris, if you want to take it away and say some final words. And then
thanks, Elaine. Just a few words of thanks, actually. First, to the participants. The Wetlands Group interviewed somebody from Chile that had just a great point, I think, to finish this off. And that is just beautiful things happen when we kind of come and work together. And that's really, I feel, what happened today. I mean, you guys worked really, really hard, and your presentations are outstanding. And we feel, as Kathy mentioned earlier, just a lot of pride, and we look forward to, really showcasing your hard work and your outcomes on our website, and for other people to see and for other people to use as a resource. So again, we're really grateful for all of your hard work and what you've accomplished through a relatively challenging year. I also like to thank our attendees here that have come to join us today to hear more about the Winds of Change and what our participants have been up to. As Elaine says, we'll be in touch again, and we just really encourage you to stay in touch. We're really looking forward to continue to expand the program over the next few years and really figure out ways how we can engage multiple communities in Chile, in New Zealand, and maybe even farther afield across Latin America. So thanks for your attention and your attendance and your really good questions. And then finally, just thanking my colleagues, especially Elaine and Natalie, for their hard work in organizing the symposium. It came off so nicely, and it really gave a really nice showcase for our participants, which I'm always excited about. And Kathy and Francisco and Christina, thank you for all of your hard work in running this. So I guess I'll just finish up and say kia ora, thank you, and gracias, and all the best, and enjoy the upcoming holidays. We hope that you're safe and well wherever you are, and thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.